Hi there, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the first video in the restoration of this Grundig 2140 tube radio. Yes, you heard me right, tube radio. I'm finally back into the tubes. I've missed tube radios. I enjoy the transistor stuff, but my passion is really the tube equipment, and I've finally received a few tube radios that I'd ordered quite some time ago. This one arrived over the weekend while I was away, so I really couldn't wait to get started. And it's on here. It's a Grundig 2140. It's from the sort of beginning of the end of the tube era, 1962-63. It's a small one, and you probably know from previous videos I like those small tube radios. I like the way they've compacted everything in there. It's not incredibly tight. It's not as if you can't get into it like a BRAUN SK22, which is very, very tight. This one has got space, but it's optimized. And it's optimized to the point where they've now got the standard tube lineup, which is the reason I designed that tube tester, so I'll be able to test the tubes. They've got the circuit optimized, they've got the form factor optimized, and so this should be fun. I want to go into this with a fair amount of detail because I miss that detail, just as I miss the tube equipment. I miss the detailed descriptions of schematics and how these things work and some of the quirks that they've got in there and things you've got to look out for. I have no idea if this thing works. When I received this, it said that it was not working. So in the meantime, I opened it up and started the introduction. So this is for you guys who've been asking me where the hell the tube radios have gone to. This should be fun. So if this is your sort of thing, stick around, enjoy the series. And here we've got it, the Grundig 2140. It's one of those small ones. Look at that. It's quite a small radio and pretty simple, but pretty complete. It's got the usual music and speech buttons here. Then you've got off, long wave, short wave, medium wave, and FM. And if you want the pickup input, you push those two together. And that's off. So I can see that the buttons seem to be working, which is a good bit of news, but there is something that I've found at the bottom of the box, and that is the indicator, the dial indicator. So either the whole thing is without a dial string or just the indicator is broken off. I can see it's broken off there. So we'll put that aside carefully for now. Let's have a closer look. It's pretty much the usual thing on these radios. You've got our volume, and this is the tone, and they both seem to be moving okay. The dial glass is plastic and it's in perfect condition. There's our music and speech buttons, and the bands. Nothing spectacular about this, except that the shortwave does not, or rather the FM UKW is not in megahertz, it's in band numbers, channel numbers, so 2, 3, 4, all the way to 42, 43, which means I'm not sure up to how high this goes, whether it goes to, well actually I'm just looking at the screen over there, it says 87 to 100 megahertz, so it doesn't go to 104, 108 like the more recent ones did. And here we've got our tuning, which is a single tuning. This thing obviously has a clutch mechanism. So when you push FM, it clicks in the one gear. And when you push in one of the AM bands, it gives you the other one. We'll see that when we open up inside. The grill cloth seems to be a little bit stained, but not too seriously. There are a few marks on there. I'm sure that'll come off. Logo's fine. Everything else is fine over there. But the part that's in really good condition is the actual cabinet. Look at this. This piano finish, this really shiny finish is practically perfect. I don't see any chips, any stains. This thing is going to come out very, very well, just with a little bit of polishing, nothing serious. Now, if you look at the back, is in absolutely immaculate condition. This thing looks like it's not seen any damage. Treatment's been very good. Perfect, perfect, perfect. We've got the usual FM dipole antenna over there. This was actually in the wrong place. The dipole should be like that. Someone's bent this out of shape. So that'll be the dipole, that'll be the external long wire antenna, serial number over here, and then the input-output for tape. So you've got external input, and the one side is the tape out. You could tape from there. External 6 ohm speaker. And other than that, nothing much to this. The dial cord seems to be in very good condition as well. And this thing reminds me a lot of one that I've just done, which looks completely different to this, but it seems to be exactly the same because I'm looking at the back here. These two are exactly the same as the other one. These screws on here, and then you've got these clips. But the body's completely different, but according to the schematic, it's the same radio. Let me show you what I mean. I've just finished restoring this Grundig 2147 for a series of articles that I'm doing on ELV magazine. If you're German, you might have seen it. It's in German. I write them in English. They translate it for me. And this project has just been completed. It's been a long one because this was done in about 11 articles of, with 2-month intervals. But this radio is, according to the schematic, the same radio as that one. And it's a completely different form factor. But you can see these, the back is exactly the same. And if the schematic's the same, then I guess they use the same chassis. And also the way these buttons are, music, speech, off, long wave, and short wave, medium wave, FM, that's exactly the same as the one we're looking at here. And I'm sure if we open this thing up, which I'm not going to do because we're going to see the same on that one. If I open this up, I'm sure we'd see exactly the same on that radio. So let's get back to our subject. So to open these up, it's very simple. You unscrew that. You actually loosen it and it falls down. There we go. And then you remove these two. That's actually screwed in. And I've not opened this up yet, so we'll be seeing this together. Let's see what state it's in. What has fallen off here? This thing was just a washer on here, so we can put that aside. And here's the back of our radio. And I can really see a problem here. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. We'll see. Let's have a closer look. Here we've got the usual suspects. Power transformer over there. This is exactly the same layout as the other radio. Yeah, it is. EL84, and it's got some white dust on here. And I thought this was internal. This is the EL84 power tube. If it was internal, it would have meant that the tube had been gassed out, so it wouldn't have been functional. But it doesn't seem to be. This seems to be external, this dust, this powder, whatever this is. I don't know what it is. Then we've got an EABC80, we've got an EF89, and back there we've got an ECH81, and of course on the FM we've got the ECC85. Now this thing looks pretty normal, the usual dust, but again, nothing serious. But yeah, this is exactly the same as the other radio. Interesting. It'll be deja vu. I've done the 2147 twice on this channel before, which is why I didn't actually do videos for the one I did for the magazine. It would have been a bit repetitive, but this is going to be more or less the same. I want to go into a little bit of detail on this because I miss it. I miss working on one of these tube radios and doing some of that descriptive stuff that I do with schematics and so on. So a lot of you have been asking for it, so here it is. Right, I'm going to get this thing out of the cabinet. I've noticed that all this paint job, this is actually like a rubber coating, it seems. It is all intact. This cabinet is as immaculate as it's going to get. So that should be fun. That should be quite a... I won't say it. I won't say it. I was going to say an easy project. Every time I say it, something goes wrong. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut. But you know what I mean. It doesn't look too complicated. Let's get cracking. Let me get this out of the cabinet. All it takes is 4 screws on the underside, and then you've got to desolder the speaker wires. So I'll do that and see what we're facing. I've noticed one small difference to the other one. The speaker wires have got this coil over here. There is actually no wire. The coil comes from the speaker, and this one goes to ground on that clip over there, and the other one, the red one, goes to the connection there on the output transformer. So I can't actually pull it out. I can't reach the solder points underneath the speaker, which is where I would have liked to remove it from. I'm going to have to desolder from here, and I have to move some of these resistors out of the way. That's going to be a little bit sneaky, but we should be able to do that. I'll see what's the best way to get that done. Just for my reference, the speaker connection is the first, second, third one from the right. And here we are. She's out of the cabinet. And as expected, this is practically identical to the other one I've just mentioned. Let's have a closer look. There's our selenium rectifier, bridge rectifier. It's one of those little small ones. Power transformer. There's an option here. You choose the voltage depending on where you fit the fuse. This one here is for 220 volts. That's for 110. So it's set to 220. I have no idea if this thing's blown or not. We'll find out as we go along. And as I mentioned, EL84 power tube. This one here is the EABC80. This is the detector, the diode and the triode for the preamp. EF89 IF amplifier. There's our ECH81. There's our second IF transformer, first IF transformer. Output transformer over there with those, those capacitors look really grubby. Those are definitely gone. I mean, look at that. That thing seems to be blowing itself out. That one's blown already. Over here we've got the tuning condenser for the AM, FM tube over here, the ECC85, the ferrite antenna, which seems to be intact. Great stuff. The FM front end, covered as usual with a shield. Let's keep going. And of course, our dial string, which is completely messed up, broken. But there's actually a drawing in there to show us how it's done, so it should not be difficult. The FM dial string seems to be intact, if I can get it to activate. No, the dial string's all gone, so I'm going to have to see what's happening here. But that shouldn't be difficult. That's actually an easy one to restring. And looking at this from the front, everything seems to be okay. There's our magic eye over here, shining through the dial. Yeah, a little bit of dirt. I don't see, oh, there's actually like a grease on here. That's usually a good sign. It means there's no rust, and the grime has protected the chassis itself from rust. I hope that's the case. This is going to be a good opportunity for me to try out my compressor, my little airbrush compressor, to wash that. I'll see how that works. What else can we see? These dial knobs are not looking very good. They're tarnished. The brass is tarnished, but we can polish that. And then, of course, they're just dirty. It shouldn't be a problem. What's the underside look like? Again, there's nothing unusual here. The usual paper caps that have to be replaced. These guys are definitely bad. Here we've got some more paper caps, a couple of electrolytics. There's our main filter cap, which I'm going to replace or restuff. A few more paper caps. This radio is a couple of years older than the 2147 that I've just mentioned, because some of the caps on the 2147 weren't of this type. The layout's exactly the same. I think the whole thing is exactly the same, except the type of capacitors they used were slightly more modern. I replaced those anyway, but these guys are definitely more obvious. It actually becomes easier to find them. You've got, there's one small electrolytic there, there's one there, there's one there. Will have to be checked. The rest are paper caps, and the other ones, these little guys over here, polystyrene, they normally don't need to be changed. But there's no ceramics on here, and I think, if I recall correctly, the other one had ceramics. So this is definitely a few years older, but they've used the same chassis. I suppose if something works, why change it? Okay, I've got some work to do. I've got to think about whether I want to switch this thing on or not. I might just do that, see what we're facing, but I'll have to do the tuning with my finger on the tuning caps because the dial strings are gone. I'll think about that. Let's see what we decide. Okay, I've decided to do a test, and I'll tell you what I've done so far. I've done a quick test on the power transformer, which seems to be okay, and I've used that method that I've described in the building blocks video section. I'll link that above if you want to see how to do that safely. I've also tested the output transformer in the same manner. Also have a video on that in the building blocks. I'm happy that they both seem to be okay. So what I've done is I've connected a speaker, and because I had to desolder the speaker wires, I've connected the speaker to those the external speaker socket. I'm going to put this on medium wave. I've got a mini whip antenna in there, just let's be optimistic. And I'm going to switch on the dim bulb tester, but I'm starting with the Variac at 100 volts. So let's see what happens. Well, we should at least have the light on. I can't see any glow yet. But then again, it is 100 volts. It's drawing 60 milliamps on the dim bulb. So what I'm going to do is keep an eye on the dim bulb tester, make sure the current doesn't spike, and I'm going to increase the voltage to about 150. Volts. I've got one light bulb in there, so there's a lot of dim restriction. It's drawing 70 milliamps. I can just see a glow on the L84, so we do have that, but the light bulb is gone. I always like the light bulb to work, so let me just change that quickly. Hang on a second. Okay, take two. I've changed the light bulb. Okay. I like to see the bulb glowing because it always reminds me that there's high voltage over there. So obviously this one is kaput. Do we hear anything? Put the volume up. Let it warm up a bit. It's at 150 volts. I'll go up to a little bit higher. I can hear some hum. 200 volts. Whoa. Of course, I have to tune it on there. Very distorted. Very, very distorted over here. But the front end's working and the amplifier is working, so something's distorting, but let's try FM. Now FM, I have to tune this guy over here. It's completely stuck. Oh man. It's so tight that I can understand why this thing broke. I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to force it, but what have we got here? Medium wave. Let's try short wave. Shortwave is working as well. Long wave. Okay, put that off. That is actually very encouraging. So what have we discovered? We discovered that the reception on AM is all there. We've got something on long wave, medium wave, and short wave. The amplifier is working because we're getting the audio coming through. The transformer is obviously working because we've got the power, and we do have the audio section working as well. There is something really, really wrong with the audio. The distortion is pretty bad. So this thing leads me to believe we've got a full recapping to do, which is something that I expected anyway. We've also got a problem with this guy, which is so stiff. This thing probably needs degreasing because it is completely stuck in there. It can move. It moves very slightly, but I don't want to force it because I don't know what's happening inside the metal can on here. So one of the first things I'll need to do before trying that is loosening that up, which shouldn't be too difficult. You just need to get rid of the old grease and that should clean it up nicely. But yeah, okay, this is positive. This radio is a candidate for full restoration because the main parts are working. And if that 2147 that I just showed you is anything to go by, and I'm sure the reception will be very, very similar, this should be quite sensitive. It's going to be a great little project. All right, let me get started. I think the first thing, obviously, will have to be the power supply, but when I do the power supply, I usually get rid of those caps straight away because I'm working on the top surface. But first of all, I'm going to remove the dial glass. I don't want to tempt fate. I thought this is plastic. I think it's actually, it might be glass, which is another reason to get it out of here before it gets broken. Okay. All right, so everything's been removed, and good news, this thing's plastic. You still have to treat it carefully so that none of this scrapes off. So I'll put this away somewhere safe because I'll only need this further ahead. Whoa, there's quite a bit of dirt on here. Now, dirt is not scary, especially since I've got my airbrush compressor that I want to use with isopropyl alcohol to clean up all that grime. This is the first radio that I'm going to be using that on from the beginning to end. So it should be quite revealing. I think I made the right choice. I know a lot of you have informed me that that thing could turn into a flamethrower, but I know I'll be very careful. And also I do use a mask because breathing alcohol, not something I want to do too much of. Okay, I've got lots of work to do. Let me carry on and get back to you when I've got something to report. So I'm going to cut this video short for now. I want to thank you for your company, welcome you to this series. Hope you stick around. This should be an interesting one. I'll try and make it as interesting as possible. And if you've enjoyed that, click like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. And if you want to support the channel directly, remember you can do so on Patreon and on PayPal. Links are in the description below. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. And above all, stay safe.